All right, well, this week, 8, 9, something like that, and you caught me on a break. I'm up here on the 4th floor of the legislative building as opposed to our chamber on the 3rd floor. The Senate's in session, but I'm just taking a quick break. It's budget time. You can tell, I wear my dollar tie when we got budget on. And what's not in the Senate Republican budget, what is in the proposed House budget that's over there, are about $100 million in tax breaks. Breaks that we are going to, or the House anyway, is very likely to close in its budget and asking us to do the same thing. We probably won't, we're under Republican domination. But let me tell you what these House proposals are, the loopholes that they would close, how the House uses the money and how we might use the money. First, there's $31.7 million that goes away every year in an exemption for fuel that's used in the production of fuel. That is, refineries use it. It's the fuel that they need to create the heat that refines gasoline. $31.7 million every year. Why are we subsidizing the petroleum industry? They're profitable, they're dangerous. Social policy dictates that we go easy on petroleum. There's every reason not to do this. And the House would not do it, apparently, or is likely to vote not to do it. Let's see how we are on that. How about the non-resident sales tax? It's $29 million a year. You probably never heard of it. I never heard of it until I got here. It simply gives visitors to Washington, if they come from states in which the sales tax is 3% or less, low sales tax, the right to buy without a sales tax here. Why, you ask? Now, if they're from Oregon or Idaho, it's there theoretically to give merchants in the border counties less of a disincentive against people going to Idaho or Oregon for high-priced items, buying a refrigerator or a car. Okay. But if you're here from Ohio, why do we need to give you a tax break? Why do we need to spend $29 million on it? I don't know. Bottled water. We did that once. And it was taken out by the companies that make soda pop and so forth. And the soda pop tax, you remember, was defeated at the polls. Rather, the break was reinstated at the polls when the companies spent about $12 million to do it. It's a $24 million exemption, so they were spending about half a year's worth of the break they get to keep it. I suggest we put them through that exercise again, and let's see if they want to do it. And last, the B&O tax. Nobody likes the B&O tax, right? But what this break was from the B&O tax was for prescription drug resale. That is, pharmacies that, not compounding pharmacies, but pharmacies that could come in the state, create jobs, resell prescriptions, drugs to doctors, hospitals, or perhaps directly to the public. And we were willing to give them a break for that. But what's happened is out-of-state companies remained out of state, sell in our state, and get the tax break that you don't get if you work in-state. We don't need this. It's a $15.6 million giveaway every year. That adds up between the four of them to about $100 million. We in the Senate could not get our Republican majority to go along with $10 million on statewide projects to reduce homelessness by way of shelters, by way of low-income housing, by way of education, alcohol, and drug treatment, and those things. That was $10 million we don't have. Here's a way to get it. We could not get our Republican, it remains to be seen whether we can get our Republican colleagues to go along with a funding for indigent criminal defense, public defenders. Mind you, this is a constitutionally required right. This is not something that we might or might not do. We have to do this. We have no current funding for it. So what we're going to do in this bill, and I'm reluctantly having to go along with it, I don't like this, is to simply jack up by a few bucks the fees and penalties that people pay when they get convicted of either a misdemeanor, a gross misdemeanor, or in some cases even an infraction in district court or muni court. This is not felonies, the big stuff. This is the minor crimes and infractions. One fee goes from 43 to 58 bucks. Another goes from 100 to 175. You get it. Adds up. It might be enough in the aggregate to help our public defense. But wouldn't it be a lot smarter, instead of putting more and more penalties on the shoulders of blue-collar people? All right, they screwed up, they committed a crime. I'm not excusing that. But we put more and more and more burdens on their shoulders to fund the criminal justice system rather than pay for it here. This is a way we could do that and pay for it here. One last thing, it has nothing to do with, well, it does have something to do with taxes. That is liquor and the bill that would redistribute to big companies, big retailers, notably Costco, Walmart, and so forth, the right to sell without paying the 17% liquor tax to restaurants. It sounds kind of nice. A restaurant runs out of a bottle of bourbon, wants to get some bourbon, can send their guy down the street to the grocery store, get bourbon, and not pay the 17%. If that were all it was, the occasional bottle that the bartender is out, of course, who's going to stand in the way? What that bill does, though, and it's a problem for those of us looking for revenues to support social programs, education, higher ed, and environment, and healthcare, when a $17% tax on liquor goes out the window, not just for the bartender, but so that these big retailers could start getting into the liquor distribution business. The state loses that revenue when they do. It's a deprivation of a large, what is now a large percentage of revenue that we got when we gave up the liquor stores. We used to own the liquor stores, remember? We gave that up in return for the 17%. Now, Costco, Walmart, and the big retailers want an exemption out of that 17% when it was part of the deal. So you can guess I'm not going to be a yes on that bill. Well, that's the news from my next to last week here. I'll talk to you one more time in my political career, and that'll be next week. Catch you then.